In this video, I'll show you how I draw a realistic eye using pastel pencils. I've been experimenting with pastel pencils a lot lately and really love their smoothness and how easily they layer compared to colored pencils. You don't need to use hard pressure, just light, soft layers to build a smooth and realistic result. If you'd like to draw along with me step by step, the full real-time lesson is available inside my Patreon membership, including the reference photo and sketch outline. Now let's get started. When you're picking out your colors, you can also just swatch them on an extra piece of paper. This isn't pastel matte because I want to keep this paper for the drawings and not for the swatches, but you can just take an extra piece of paper. You can add a light layer and then combine it with the blue. Like I said, you can mix that and then see what you get, what color you get. That you get this light violet color, and then again with the you see that what I mean, that you get it like a beautiful violet purple color like I see in the reference photo. So this was the 189 and a layer of the 140 blue. So you can also swatch them, see how they turn out on paper to see which color mixes you want to use. So I'm just going to start with going over the darker areas first with the dark brown. So I have this next to me and then I pick a color. I'm going to use the 177 and yeah, I use an electric sharpener to sharpen the pencil. As you can see, this is a fairly sharp tip. So let's just get started. Like I already said, I'm excited to start this, but also a bit nervous because, yeah, if you try out a new medium, there's always something new to learn. And then you can always be a bit hesitated, like, how will this turn out? Will I be satisfied? But I really like how this, I thought this paper, the pastel matte, would be too textured for me because I prefer smooth, but this paper works really beautifully with pastel pencils. So I know the techniques that I use for colored pencils. I'm just going to try something and then see what works. Oh, one thing I forgot, I'm going to use a cotton bud to do the blending, but normally you don't have to do a lot of blending because you're going to do that with the pencil itself. But let's say you want a really light color and you want to smoothen that layer without having to darken it or go over it with one of the other pencils, then you can use the cotton bud to blend. The 189, and then here you see it's darker. So I use a really light pressure. I hold the pencil also a bit more to the back, and you don't want to completely fill in the tooth because we want to be layering, and your first layers won't really look good. So try to keep that in mind. You'll need to go through, yeah, the ugly stages first. So trust the process and just go layer by layer. You can do this too. And you can use the white to lighten the color. Here it's all really light. So let's use the lighter pink, the 132 for this area. Let's also blend a bit. I'm using really light pressure. So that's what I meant with colored pencils. Eventually you will need to use more pressure and press harder on your pencils. With pastel pencils, you can just continue to use really light pressure. The pastel just glides onto the paper. So where it's light, you see how I barely just add a layer. And I already know that we can lighten with the white, etc. But I think I want to keep it safe and just use the lighter pencils. If you look through the eyebrow, you will see skin tone. So just adding it really light. You see how this stage looks? And you might think, will it start to look better? Yes, you need to keep going. But it's actually with everything. Also watercolor. I created a video lesson of this one. So if you're interested, you can look at the watercolors features. But yeah, you also start with layers like this. So you will map out the colors first. You don't start with the details. So with any medium you use, you really need to trust the process here. Okay, let's start to use the blue here. It's beautiful and really light. See how I just glaze this color? Actually, next I want to, normally I start with the iris. Not sure why. Yeah, normally I start with the iris and then you have some beautiful, something to look at, what's already almost finished. Blue. Here I'm going to use the lighter blue, yeah, just to be safe. So this was the blue 140 of the Faber-Castell. Now I'm going to use the Caran 661. This is a really beautiful light blue color. I'm using really light color, but there is more pigment coming off of the Caran than the Faber-Castell. So really light, just add a touch. And I really like to use blues or purples or greens for the skin tones because everyone has like an undertone. You will know that if you look at your hand again at the veins, depending on the skin tone, it will be more blue, more green, or more purple, like I already said, more violet. And that's a really beautiful, interesting color to add to the skin tone. It's never just pinks, browns, orange. Blue, green, and purple are really interesting colors to add to the skin tone. I'm checking where I see that bluish tone. I also see it a bit here. I actually want to move on to the iris, but let's try to make the skin look a bit better first by adding another layer. And for that, I want to use the lighter pink, the 132, and have this blend in with each other. Yeah, here I see a bit of that orange. Actually, let's use that first. I'm going to use the 187 because this one is already quite red, and if I mix it with the pink, I want more orange. So 187 up here. We can also add this layer later if we lose the color with the blending. Then it will just glaze a light color, but I miss that orange. I need more orange brown in the skin, really light. So I think I'm also going to use the regular colored pencils for the hairs. I'm not sure how that will go, if that will work on this paper, pastel matte. But again, if we don't try it out, we wouldn't know. If you're used to coloring with colored pencils, it can be really different to coloring with pastel pencils now. But like with every medium you use, it's all about practice. And if you want to learn more about it, I would say just go for it and do some practicing. And maybe the first times it will feel like you don't know what you're doing, you're just doing something. Yeah, I know. But I would say, I'm also going to add a bit orange here. I would say just go for it. Try it out. Start practicing. And of course, I can't really, if you look at my drawing now, I can't really convince you now to try out pastels. But yeah, wait and see when we have the end result. So I'm confident that this will look better. And the more you practice, the more confident you will also get yourself about your own art. Okay, so with the 132, let's still light pressure. You might want to use more pressure and fill this all in and make the skin look smoother, but yeah, don't do that. Keep on using light pressure. And actually, you can also use the cotton bud to smoothen, and then you will push the, like here, this is quite light here. Let me show you. So you push the pastel pigment into the paper. You see how you get a smoother result with the cotton bud? If you have lighter layers, that's what you're going to use. See that? The result is looking better. But I want to blend. Yeah, actually this will get too dark, so I'm going to use the lighter pink for that. So you can either blend with another color, but if you see that, hey, it's getting too dark, that's not what I want, then you use the cotton bud. Everyone has that at home. So we just need the right paper, pastel pencils, and a cotton bud. I think that's all you need. But the paper choice is really important here. And like I said, I tried out other paper, but I noticed that you couldn't layer that much. And pastel matte is more expensive paper. But if you really want to give it a go, I would really try out pastel matte. I'm also adding a bit more color here. You see how really light, just barely touching the paper. And now I want to use the lighter pink. Don't want this to get all dark. If you go over it with the white, you can also lose some of that color. So yeah, then you will need to add more color. So that's why I got these lighter pencils, the 581 now. And actually I'm going to combine these two. In some areas I see that it's more lighter pink, and in some areas I see that it's more peachy. Yeah, peach, this color. So 541 and 581. I'm going to start with the 541. And I'm still using light pressure. Again, with pastel pencils, you can get it smooth really easily. And you don't want to get it too smooth. You want, let's see, where there's highlight, I'm going to use the pink, and then this peach color, just seeing where I can use it. Yeah, that's a lot of blue actually what I added here. So I'm not sure if I'm going to be satisfied, but like I said, you want to keep, yeah, you can also blend with your finger actually. It's also getting a bit green with this color, orange and blue. Yeah, because this blue color and this is almost a bit orange and blue, those are the complementary colors. They can get a bit greenish grayish when you mix them. So I'm not going to go over the blue. What I wanted to say, you want to keep using light pressure because like I have now, if you're not satisfied with the color, you want to be able to keep on layering and keep on making it, yeah, tweaking the color until you get the color right. So So that's why I'm not afraid to add a color, because I know I can just go over it and still change the color. Okay, so that's why you want to keep on continuing with light pressure. Yeah, I'm going to switch to the 581. And this, yeah, this blue color, I don't know. I'm going to try something here. I have the kneaded eraser. I'm pretty sure I can pick it up. It's too opaque. It's too, the pastel, this one is, I should have used lighter pressure. So I'm not satisfied with how this is looking. So before I blend it in, I want to pick it up with the kneaded eraser. That's better. Okay, that works. The 581. This is the pink white. Oh, beautiful name. So if I don't want to use the white, that's what I missed here. This is the beige 103, 101, and then the pink white if you have a cooler skin tone in this case. Okay, circular motion and yeah, again, light pressure, even though you feel like wanting to blend it in more. And you know that when painting with watercolors, coloring with colored pencils, it takes time. So try not to rush. It's the same with pastels. It's all about the layering and just blend multiple colors. I really think that's what makes a difference with realistic art, realistic drawings, realistic paintings. I don't ever go for hyper realistic, but I do want to have that realistic look. I want to have the values correct. Okay, so I like how the blue is looking better. You just see, and we still can blend over this, of course. You can also use the white here. I'm going to use the 541 again because the skin tone isn't that pink. You see that peach color. And you can see that it's already starting to slowly get smoother and smoother, the layers. And that's all without having to use more pressure. It's just about the layering, maybe a bit here. And the great thing here, it's lighter. You see a highlight, but we can really easily just use the white and create that highlight there. So you don't have to go around that area, what I normally would do with the regular colored pencils. I don't want this part to turn out too warm. This is a warmer color. Yeah, just leave this for now. With the pink 581 again, really light. I still see my sketch of the lashes showing through. That's what I want. Okay, now I'm going to leave this. Looking at the iris, 179. This is the brown, the warm brown. And then you see those lighter details. You can create that with the lighter pencils. Start light. Let's see, trying to go around that brightest highlight. And then with the dark blue, this is the 157, like a dark indigo. Going over the pupil. You see how we already used the dark brown for the pupil. Now adding the dark blue, you get a really almost black color. So I prefer to mix the dark blue and brown. You get a beautiful, more natural color that way. And by doing that, you can use more blue or more brown depending on the color. Get a beautiful rich color. See that how already it starts to look better by filling in the iris, but we're not there yet. I see a touch of orange, so let's add the 187 here. I'm using a bit more pressure, and then I'm going to add the white before I go over that too much with the darker pencils. I'm going over that orange and going over that highlight just to smoothen it, otherwise you will see the paper texture. With the same brown, the 179, add another layer, and then I think I'm going to darken where I need to with the dark brown. Okay, now I'm going to go around the lighter areas. You see the iris texture goes like this and this. You just follow the same direction. Now with the dark brown with the 175, go over the pupil. And you also see those fine lines in the reflection for the lashes, but that's part of the details, so something for later. Let's actually also use this color to carefully go over the crease and a bit below, because you see that it blends in, because it's not a line, it's a crease. You will also see a dark reflection. See how that, I haven't even used black. This is already dark enough. So this isn't a line, don't fill it all in. Just here, this tip corner. And let's fill in. You see how white that is? We need to make this look more realistic. Fill this in with the gray. I'm going to use the warm gray first. And this is the warm gray. And this is the cool gray. And you know that it's cool if it leans more towards the blue and warm more towards the yellow. So 270. think I'm just going to combine the two. Here it's darker. I'm going to use the darker gray, the darker warm gray, just for here in the corner, the 273. And then if you go over that with the lighter one, you'll make it lighter. So that's the great thing with pastel. I want to darken. I'm going to use the 169. I also want to use this color to go over the crease line to make it a bit less brown. Here you see that shadow part is below the crease, and then here it's a bit above. So I'm blending a bit, adding a bit of shadow above the crease on this side, like that. And we can lighten, or that will blend in more with the skin because it looks too dark now. So with these tiny, smaller details, that is one thing. Also with watercolors, it's also tricky, but then you use the smallest brush, but it's really tricky to get those smaller details. I noticed that with the thicker pencil tips, maybe hold it more like this for those smaller details. So that's why I want to combine the regular pencils for those final details, like the eyelashes. And the white, you see here, that highlight. And maybe because it's glossy, I could use the white marker. Not sure if I'm going to do that, but that's what I'm thinking. Okay, I think this is okay. We still need some details there, but let's focus on the skin again. Around it, I want to use the lighter. This is the eggshell 541. Blend here and here. Actually see a bit of that purple brown there. But then I'm going to lighten. So first with the 169, add that color. And you can go back and forth. You can lighten, but then if you need to add some color back, you can just glaze. I need more orange. So with the 187. So you can focus on each area separately. I'm focusing now on this part, the crease, where I see orange. And here I also see a bit of that orange, and then here. Okay, let's blend that with the Q-tip. See how that looks. Or I want to lighten it a bit. So I'm going to use the 581, the pink white. So blending over the blue here. Still light pressure. Maybe a bit more medium pressure in some areas. Here I can use the white. Here below this shadow part. See that it's just a bit lighter. Actually, you see how it's already starting to look smoother. The skin, layer by layer. It's almost actually, I think pastels look almost like oil painting. And oil painting, I always really like the result, the end result, but I've never seen myself using oil paint, especially the process with the layering and then waiting for it to dry. So that's why I wanted to try out watercolors, but waiting for a layer to dry is something that I don't really like. I just want to be able to continue. And I think pastels really have this interesting painterly look. You see that? And you see how all of those layers underneath start to show through? I really like that. And that's why it's important to build up the layers with light pressure. I really want to experiment more with pastels and get better at it. So with the 189 first, let's go over this. Here I see a shadow, because otherwise it's getting too orange. And you can feel that now that you have a bit smoother result, you need to use even less pressure. Otherwise you will get too much color. So just add this and then blend like that, really beautifully. I'm also going to take the pigment of this color and just blend over this blue. Yeah, that's better. And again with the 581, blend over this orange here that I added. Okay, do I need more pink? No, with the 189. Let's add some here. When you look through the eyebrow, you see the darker skin tone. So I already added orange there, so you see that it's mixing in with that orange color. Let's blend this with the cotton bud. I really like how this blends it in. And that's what I missed with colored pencils, having a blending tool to blend in. And I also got that question a lot, like how do you blend the colored pencils? It's about the layering process. It's a long process. You need to continue to layer. And again, you can blend with a solvent, but it's just all a preference. Blending this blue. So just circular motion. You see how you just blend it in. Actually, I want to blend the edge of the skin. So I'm going to go around the whole edge and have it nicely smoothen out. So also blend here. So you see how the blending also makes a difference. And then once you have these layers, now you can start to determine, am I satisfied with the color? Am I satisfied with the value? So 189, just want to slowly darken, because also with the blending you can get it a bit lighter. So then you will need to check the value again. Really light. See how beautifully just light. We don't have to use more pressure. Touch of blue. This is the 140. Start really light. See how much pigment is coming off. If it's already enough, just like this. And then with the blending, you can blend. See that? With that blue, just a touch, beautifully blends in. I am enjoying using pastels, comparing it to colored pencils. Just how light touch you can just add every time. You don't have to worry about the white of the paper showing through, that you have to press harder and then not being able to layer over that in the end. So you really need to be mindful. With pastels, you can just keep on layering. Well, I'm not sure how many layers I can add. You do want to be careful that it's not a really thick pastel layer. So that's something I'm not sure about, but I do really like that you can just go light over light with just light pressure. With the warm brown, 179, if I can just add like a really light touch, like that, and then blend here a bit. So I thought I need lighter pencils, but actually if you just glaze a really light layer and then blend, that works too. Interesting, and a good thing, because the colors on its own, you see these swatches, how bright and vibrant, but you can add just a light touch. So with the same brown, the 179, I'm actually going to darken here between the lashes a bit. I'm just barely touching the paper, really light, just glaze this color. And then with the 169, because it's a bit darker than the pink, also barely glazing, and then going a bit above the blue so that I do get a gradient. So the more layers you have, you just can easily, okay, now blend this. See how that turned out? Yeah, great. And it looks pretty dark, but I see that I can also darken this shadow again, create more of a gradient and blend over the shadow color. So if yours turned out too dark, you can also do this. See how easily you can just go light over dark, bit back and forth. Yeah, I think that's better. Actually, you don't have to blend completely. I also want to keep some texture. You can just dab with your finger like that. I think I want to try to create some kind of texture. Like here I see a crease line. Here I see some lines. So I want to try to create like some texture in the skin. So I'm using a white, and because skin also has texture. Here I also see some texture. See like hairs. I'm just, see that? Just dabbing the white to create some kind of texture, because you can get it really smooth with pastels. I'm going to create the eyebrow hairs, and I'm going to use the walnut brown so I don't go too dark right away. And then I might be able to add some pastel or color in between if I need to, in between the hairs maybe. Here they are more clumped together. So again, I'm just using light pressure. You don't need harder pressure. Let's see, maybe I can use a lighter brown. This is burnt sienna, kind of like a reddish brown, a bit lighter than the walnut brown. So let's gently add these. Yeah, so I wonder if I can go over this with pastel again, maybe to blend, because that's what I normally do. I blend over when I create hairs. Let's also use this here, because I also see some reddish brown hairs. Here they're more together. And with the darker brown, this is the dark sepia, those darkest, with a bit more pressure. It's not too dark there. Okay, the hair isn't looking realistic now. So I'm curious, yeah, what can I do? Maybe blend over it. Because here also you want to make it look like the hair is coming out of the skin and not on top. Let's see, I'm going to use the pink 581. Let's see if we can blend over, create a more blended look, and also go in between the hairs. Yeah, I think this is what I also do with colored pencils. I create them in layers. So that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to blend over these. I hope that will help make them look a bit more softer and natural. See, that already helps. Here it looks just like some random strokes, but here it soften the hairs and blend them more in. Now let's add another layer with the walnut brown. Let's go over a few here. I'm going to use the burnt sienna here because it's warm. I see warm, a bit more clumped together because I have too much individual strokes. But I'm going to use the brown now. A bit more hairs in between. When using this over this paper, you still see some kind of texture with the regular colored pencils. And the pastels are just soft. They really glide over this paper. So that's the difference I'm noticing. Maybe I can just try to sharpen one of the pastel pencils to a sharp point. Try that, but it's okay. Maybe I needed to have a few more layers first with the pastel, because I didn't have many layers there for the skin. Okay, so I'm going over some of them. Some of them I'm just keeping lighter. I want to blend over these again, the pink 581, and go over a few of these again to blend in. I'm actually going to sharpen. That's better. And again, I use an electric sharpener. Works really fast and easy. The lashes. I'm going to use the dark sepia. I don't want to use the black yet. I actually want to darken the crease line, but it kept getting too thick. Let's see how that goes. Okay. Yeah, I can be more precise. And then here, yeah, it actually is a bit darker. If you look through the lashes here and then here. So that's what I miss with pastel pencils, that sharper tip for those smaller details. Let's start here in the corner. They're going down. And the reflection here. And let's do that now. Those can be black. See how that goes. So that's why I like smooth paper, because then I can just really easily. So that's what I notice here. I don't have any pastel here because this is white, so I left it white off the paper. But if I go over the pastel layer, I notice it's smoother. But here, if I just color on the paper, you feel like it's not that smooth, but it is working. This is okay. So that reflection. And I couldn't get this thin line with the pastel pencil because the pastel is just thicker. Okay, so a few clumped together, a few individual. This roundness of the pupil. And then here also. The lashes are quite dark. And I don't want to go over the lashes with too much layers. Normally I darken a layer, but I want to keep them light. Okay, so here you see the lashes all like this, straight forward. So try to keep on looking back and forth. I'm actually going to darken the crease here. Can always go over a layer of that with the brown. Going over, careful, going over the eyeball whites. Okay, so far so good. The lashes are looking good. Here you see a few up. You just see the tips above the crease line. Okay, here we have a few all together. Let's see. Let's go lower here. Now the lower lashes with the dark sepia again, because they're not too dark. They're a bit lighter here. Here they're more clumped. A few are more clumped together here. Okay, let's also blend a bit over these. And here it's a bit more pink. Let's add that. Also, if you need a few more details in the iris, you can do that with these pencils. Maybe here, define this, the waterline a bit with the whites. See how that goes. Blending over some of the lashes to lighten them a bit. I don't know, make them look a bit softer with the Uniposca marker. I want to make sure that these are the final layers, remember? See that? Just making it a bit, and then maybe here between the lashes a bit. Here a bit lower. The waterline usually has that, just a thin line. Not sure if you saw that. Bit really thin, but this is something that adds another layer. Okay. Now I miss a bit more color in some areas. The pink 132. See if I can add a bit more color. Again, just really light pressure, just glazing this color. Don't blend it in completely like that. Maybe here a bit, because that blue was really light and opaque, so I missed a bit color over it. You see how I just dab with my finger to push the pigment in, but I don't want to smudge it completely. You can also use the cotton bud, but it's starting to get a bit more dirty, so you might be able to wipe it off, but your finger you can just wipe and clean. So I know it's not really a good thing to use your finger. It is easier. And because I'm not that experienced with pastel, I do feel like that I'm going a bit back and forth in some areas that maybe isn't needed. But yeah, I'm trying and experimenting. So you can try something out. If it doesn't work, you can blend over it again. I'm actually excited to experiment more with it and become more experienced, so that I actually know what I'm doing and not just guessing. I want to draw a bit more some of those hairs together. Yeah, like that. And I might need to practice more with drawing hair with the pastel pencils, because maybe that will work. But I do like how the lashes turned out. I'm actually quite satisfied with the eyebrow hairs, but I don't think I can only use the pastel pencils. Yeah, but it's something I will need to practice with again. Maybe also add a bit more color here. Okay, so I zoomed out a bit to look at it from a further distance. It always helps. This is the 179. And then I always see something that I want to add or change. I think just this shadow area, just adding. Okay, so that's the thing I noticed. You want to build up the layer slowly with light pressure so that you don't get too much smooth results too early. You want to keep on building up the layer slowly. Once you have that smoother layer, you want to carefully add some texture. So that's actually a preference. Add some texture if you like, so that it's not completely smooth. I still like to see that it's a pencil drawing. Thanks so much for watching. I hope this video inspired you and gave you some new ideas to try. If you'd like to see the full drawing process or learn from over 200 video lessons starting with the basics, you can find everything inside my Patreon membership. Feel free to leave a comment if this video was helpful or if you'd like to see more tutorials like this. And I'll see you in the next video.